Hello and welcome to another episode of the CHGO Fire Podcast, presented by Coors Light, the official domestic beer partner of Chicago Fire FC. Chicago, choose to chill. Go to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer to get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Hello, it has been a while, been a few weeks to let the listeners behind the curtain to a degree. This is not technically an every other week podcast. This is technically a twice a month podcast. And the shift of a week had to come in somewhere in the season to keep that the case. That was why we were not here last week. So the Fire played 3 games since the last episode. And you could argue, though, that they have really only showed up for one of those 3. Speaking of showing up, Matt Shabelman, Man and Ren 97, been trying to have you in here for a while now, so real glad to have you finally in studio and here on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It has been a while. I picked a heck of a day to join, a lot of emotions going around, but I'm excited to get into it and chat about it.
Yeah, we're going to go through of those 3 games. We're going to go through the first 2 relatively quickly,
as we should.
Partially aided by the fact that in the second one, basically nothing happened. So let's just get right into it. Chicago Fire 2, Houston Dynamo 1. This feels like forever ago.
2 months ago.
Yeah, I was jarred that this was a 2 weeks ago game. The big news in this game was that Brian Gutierrez got benched. Shaqiri was flanked by Marin Selassie and Chris Mueller. I guess up to that point, it was fair to say that Shaq and Guti together hadn't really worked. Frank Klopas at the time also made some comments that maybe Guti wasn't showing his best in training, and we'll get to what Guti ends up doing in this game. But of the red flags that could come up for the Fire this season, Brian Gutierrez not maturing is certainly a concern if that is what's going on here.
Oh, you nailed it on the head. I mean, all preseason we talked about how Brian Gutierrez is the X factor for this club. And the fact that he didn't make that jump that we all needed him to, that he wanted to himself to get to Europe, is a little bit concerning. I think his benching was well-timed. I think that was appropriate, a fine move by Klopas. And I mean, ultimately, he came on and scored a beautiful chip goal, assisted by Shaqiri. So the game plan worked, and we all felt good. But we do need to see a little bit more consistency, get some more goals, assists. I mean, he started off hot, that beautiful goal against Philly. But since then, the consistency is not there. And we really desperately need it from him.
Yeah, and the Fire need it from him. If he wants to be in Paris in July and August with the Olympic team, he needs to step it up. If he wants to get that transfer to Europe anytime soon, he needs to step it up. This game was odd for a few reasons. Arnaud Souquet back from the dead.
Let's go.
Just completely banished to the wilderness, and then boom, starting lineup, because why not? Alan Aragoni played at left back for the first time, a thing that several of us who followed the team had been asking for weeks. We finally got that in this game. The Fire get a penalty early because Franco Escobar decides to give Rafa Chijos a big bear hug.
That was a big one.
That was very just comical to watch. Shaqiri bears the PK. You can't criticize his penalty taking. I believe he is still perfect as a member of the Fire from the spot. Felt like a big exhale at the time, given that the Fire had been worked in their previous game against Atlanta.
Yeah, it's always nice to get 3 points at home, and we're at about a quarter away through the season, and I really thought that was going to be the start of something fresh, something new. Ultimately, we know from the next 2 games that's not the case, but it was nice. Houston was a team last year that played really well. They won the Open Cup. They made the playoffs. Hector Herrera was hurt. We had to win that game. We did our business, and, we went on from there, not to where we wanted to go, but winning your games at home is the number one thing you need to do as a club.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy for them to get there. Houston's goal comes because the Fire fell asleep on a throw-in again. This is still a problem. I don't know how this is still a problem. We might get into this more later, but all that talk about getting better at set pieces in preseason, boy, has that not held up and aged well whatsoever. It's a nice strike by Aliu, though. Sahlquist, not great, though, on this goal, which is probably why he hasn't started since, among other reasons. But then Guti gets the winner in the 78th after coming off the bench. It's a great ball by Shaqiri. It's just this looped ball over the top. Guti barely beats the keeper to it, chips it in. Big celebration, big goal. Fire win 2-1. Chris Brady was also very good in this match. He's been quietly, I think, really solid amid the rest of it, I guess you could say, amid the just morass that is the rest of this team right now. Chris continues to be good. So the Fire, to your point, did what they had to do. They were coming off a tough road loss. They were back home. They gave up a bad goal, but then they fought back. It's the sort of character that we don't often see from this team, and it was encouraging going into a game on the road against the top team in the Eastern Conference. New York Red Bulls 0, Chicago Fire 0. Flat out, Matt, this game sucked.
It was a banger of a match. I don't know what you're talking about, Alex. So excited.
Nobody who attended this game at Red Bull Arena, nobody who watched it on TV or online or wherever, nobody enjoyed this experience. I don't know if the players enjoyed this experience. This was a mostly miserable 90 minutes of soccer.
Yeah, I mean, I went into the game thinking we were going to get trounced 4-0. They got, in my opinion, the best three trio in the league, and Van Zier, Morgan, and Forsberg. That may be a hot take. Not sure.
Forsberg's damn good.
Forsberg is really, really good. And I thought we were going to get punished, destroyed 4-0. Like I said, it ended up being a 0-0 with a red card, which I'm sure we'll chat about, and ultimately was a snooze fest. It sucked. It was the worst.
Yeah, the Fire actually played okay early in this game. They looked actually fairly prepared for the pressing. It's, again, the Red Bulls, if they've got the Red Bulls on their shirt, doesn't matter where in the country they come from, where in the world, they come from, you know exactly the soccer you're going to get from them. But Forsberg's a difference maker. Lewis Morgan is looking the best he's looked in MLS up to this point. Fire named it unchanged 11, so Guti's still on the bench here. But the game kind of just motors along, and then in the 42nd minute, as you mentioned, Andres Reyes is sent off because he decided to elbow Toby Sahlquist in the face. Surely the Fire would take advantage of that, right?
You know, any subpar, even I'd argue, subpar MLS team would go up 1-0. And when you are down a goal against the best team in the Eastern Conference, you need to score a goal. You had one job.
Yeah, this is a huge opportunity. You could be confused, though, at several points during this match for thinking that the Fire were the team down to 10 men.
Oh, absolutely.
And also, it's not like the Red Bulls are going to sit back and just park it. No, they're going to keep playing their soccer, which means there should be all sorts of space to exploit. The Fire don't. The Red Bulls actually almost win it in stoppage time. They hit the post twice in
scared me, man.
About 10 seconds in the first minute of added time. Again, Chris Brady was good in this game. He seems to like Red Bull Arena. He seems to always play well there. Alan Aragoni, again, was very good in this game. A road point against the team in first place should be a great thing. This is about as unpositive, though, or as little positivity as I think that outcome could have, which is how much of a missed opportunity this felt like.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 3 points should be the standard when you're down a goal. I don't care, or when you're down a man, I should say.
Yeah.
I don't care where you are. And the Fire have the personnel and the players to get that goal. They're not that bad on paper. In fact, I'd argue on paper they're actually decent. But ultimately, it's not an awful result. Because like you said, a point on the road's a point on the road. I feel like all of us wanted to continue the momentum from the Houston game and grab those 3 points. We didn't. That's fine. And if you're going to get a point when you're up a man, and you don't get all 3 points, that means the next game you got to bounce back. You got to get 3 points and make up for it. And that's
I was going to say I was going to say a point on the road against the team in first place. It could be worse.
Could be worse.
Speaking of worse, we will get to that right after a word from our friends at Coors Light, the presenting sponsors of CHGO Fire. Between work, social media, and the difficult choices life throws our way, we get worked up sometimes, but Coors Light celebrates the opportunity to rise above and choose a chill mindset. So why not turn that rained-out barbecue into an in-house party, or after a tough loss, settle scores with an ice-cold peace offering? Make the choice to choose chill, and then reach for a Coors Light and mountain cold refreshment. I'm sure there were some Fire fans reaching for more Coors Light as the game on Saturday evening that we will get to shortly went on. There'll be great opportunities this weekend to choose to chill around Chicago soccer. The Red Stars and the Fire both at home this weekend. Maybe you're chilling and kicking back watching the playoffs of a league your favorite Chicago team got eliminated from, and you feel less stressed now that you do not have, for example, the Chicago Bulls in your life. But when the mountains turn blue, Coors Light is telling you it is as cold as the Rockies. It is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Coors Light is mountain cold refreshment, crisp and refreshing as the Colorado Rockies. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill and choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/CHGO Soccer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. CHGO Fire is also brought to you by CD1 Price Cleaners. With their low price, customers can save over 30% on their dry cleaning bill if they switch to CD1 Price Cleaners. And it's not just the lower prices, it's the fast turnaround times that can get your order back same day or next day rather than waiting 5, 6, or 7 days not knowing when your clothes will be ready. And as soon as they're ready, you can sign up for text alerts to know that you can come pick up your order. Of course, they do more than dry cleaning. They do wash and fold laundry. They'll take your big, bulky stuff, your blankets, your comforters. They also do tailoring and alterations. They can clean leather. They'll clean even big area rugs. And no matter what you bring in, every item at CD1 Price Cleaners is that same single low price. So visit chgo.cd1, that is chgo.cdone.com. The link is in the YouTube description. And once you're there, you can pick from an in-store coupon or online pickup and delivery coupon options. Thank you to Coors Light and to CD1 Price Cleaners. All right, here we go. Chicago Fire 0, Real Salt Lake 4. Matt, we've seen bad soccer from this team.
Yes, we have.
We've seen second half collapses that we can't believe from this team.
Yep.
Against Ohio teams in particular for some weird reason. I'm not sure I've ever seen the Fire look this bad.
I can agree with that. I know we've talked a lot about how it's the worst loss in Fire home history besides 2017, the Red Bull game, which I was at too and also sucked. This felt so much worse. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. But after 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whatever it was, when we were down 3-0, I've never felt more deflated and upset and just honestly miserable than at that point in any Fire game ever. It sucked. It was just terrible.
Yeah, because there's losing,
yep.
And then there's just being embarrassed,
yep.
And basically the entire ladder. After the first third of the broadcast, the final 2/3 is mostly about what the hell is wrong with this team, because the game's over as a contest. RSL, as we'll get to, pulled their foot off the gas. Absolutely. And was like, we're not going to burn any more energy than we have to at this point. This game is over. And it's just, I think there's just never been a clearer opportunity to shine a real bright spotlight on how bad things have gotten. And you don't get much national media attention on this team for understandable reasons, but when you do, it's because it gets so bad that it's like, oh my God, what the heck is going on over there? So let's get into it. Things got bad even before the soccer started because Brian Gutierrez was supposed to be back in the 11, and then we hear he gets hurt in warm-ups.
Yep.
He gets replaced by Fede Navarro for his first start of the year. He would have a significant impact on this game, Fede Navarro.
You can say that.
You can't say that. Yeah. Also, it looked like the Fire might have a chance at scoring some goals in this game because RSL do not have a single healthy center back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, they were playing a back four of all fullbacks.
Wow.
Their starting fullbacks were playing as the center back spots, and then the backup fullbacks were playing in the fullback spots.
Incredible.
So
that's awesome. That makes me so much happier. Thanks.
Yeah, you're right. No, so it was four guys who aren't center backs and who were all short.
Okay.
So you know, it should be a good game for Hugo Kuipers.
I think.
Right. Anyway, game starts okay.
Fine.
Fire look like they've got some life from after bouncing back from whatever that was in Harrison, New Jersey. And then something that, even though we didn't know how bad it was going to get, in hindsight, that was really a sign of things to come, is that Kellen Acosta yellow card in the 15th minute. Because this is the sort of thing we don't see Kellen do. Mm-hmm. So he loses out on a challenge, and normally what you would see is maybe he'll throw in a challenge, maybe he'll try to slow the guy down, maybe he'll just pass him off, and there's not a whole lot of danger here. Acosta just late and blatantly just cleats a guy in the foot. Yep. Like, we've seen red cards given for what he did here. And it was lazy. It was strange. And in the moment, I was like, man, that's That's odd. And I think it ended up, as we'll get into, being a kind of an omen of what was to come of this team, including the veteran leadership, is mentally, they're not here.
100%. I was talking to some of my guys last week after the game, and it really, to me, felt like a slippery slope of doom. When Guti got injured in the pregame, and my buddies are telling me, Guti's injured, I'm like, there's no way this goes well. And then Kellen gets that yellow card, and then the goals start coming, and that snowball's getting bigger and bigger, and eventually it was the biggest avalanche I've ever felt as a Fire fan, and it was just miserable. But you're right, Kellen's, the leader of the team. A lot of people want him to be the captain of this team. He goes and gets a blatant yellow. It ruins any sort of momentum that you had previously, if there was any at all. And that's just kind of where the downfall began at the end.
Yeah, because the Fire go through about this 5-minute sequence where they have a comedy of errors that start with that yellow card. The next one is Chris Brady and Arno Suquet just running into each other.
Love that.
And handing the ball to Chicho Arango, who has only prevented a goal by a really nice block by Carlos Terran, who gets back in positions well to keep it 0-0. Then between minutes 18 and 21, Chris Mueller gets 2 pretty good chances. The first one, should the pass from Kuipers be better? Yes, but if you're a professional soccer player and a forward, you got to be able to hit a shot with your weak foot.
Left foot,
harder,
not strong for Chris.
Harder than that. No, quite one-footed.
Yeah.
And then he's doing well in the press. He picks off a pass, and he dribbles, and eventually dribbles right into the goalkeeper and never even attempts a shot. So it's like, okay, the Fire are in this. It hasn't been great, but hoo boy, it goes downhill really, really fast. 24th minute, Andres Gomez scores. It's a good ball by Crooks down the line into the path of Catranis, who started at left back, a guy who's more of a wing back, doesn't really do defense, but he sure does offense and showed it here. Tries to find Arango with a cross, can't pick him out. It comes all the way through to Gomez, whose shot somehow evades 5 different Fire players that are standing between him and Brady. It's a nice finish, but the only thing those Fire players were blocking were Brady's vision. Anybody please stick a foot out there.
Yep. No, it's, as a former goalkeeper, I get it. I was playing intramural last Monday, and I was yelling, get out of my eyesight. I feel for Brady there, but you're right. I felt like a lot throughout the whole game, the big issue we saw was defensive positioning, defensive work rate, all of that stuff, the intangibles you need to do to block the shots and to get in the right space, prevent headers, our defense ultimately didn't do. And that's a perfect example. There's 5 guys in front of the ball, 10 legs total. 10% of legs need to go out for you to, stop the ball. Why aren't we doing it?
Yeah, and again, we'll see later in this game. We've seen it all season, though. Guys backing off. Guys simply allowing these shots from outside the 18, and it's been a problem. I'm sure Brady was furious.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot of interesting reactions to watch over the course of the goals, which do get worse. 33rd minute, Chicho Arango gets his first. Great through ball played here. Problem is the through ball was played by Fede Navarro back to absolutely nobody. Where the hell is that ball going? Arango on the end of it, slots it past Brady. And Fede Navarro got Matt Doyle from MLSsoccer.com's Face of the Week because there's a nice still frame where Navarro is just looking on in absolute horror as he realizes what he's just done. And it's just like, you're just already at this point, your mouth is just hanging agape. Like, what in the hell?
Yeah, and I feel like that Federico Navarro pass that ultimately led to an Arango goal is explains the last 10 years of Chicago Fire soccer. I mean, we saw that with Fabi earlier in the season, and I can't even tell you how many times, and I'm sure you know this as a fan, that I've seen that pass be made and it leads to a goal. And it just presents to me that there's a really large mentality issue in the club right now. No one's digging deep, and ultimately Matt Doyle got a great meme out of it, so I guess good for Matt Doyle. That's a good thing about the game, I guess.
Good thing for not Fire fans, because everybody else gets to chuckle. 4 minutes later, and if you thought, certainly the Fire cannot give away a goal worse than literally handing the now tied for the goal lead in the league leader a easy tap-in. Oh, no, because they gave him an even more wide-open tap-in in the 37th minute. Arango, the one guy you got to mark, is completely unmarked at the back post. Everyone is just standing around. Hugo Kuiper's reaction to this, he's kind of just outside the penalty area. He's kind of marking space.
I didn't see his reaction. So
he's furious. He is just dumbfounded as a striker of what are any of you doing? He looks furious. I mentioned this earlier. The Fire bragged a lot preseason about hiring a set-piece coach because they have been bad at set pieces.
Yep.
They've gotten worse. Like, unequivocally, this team has gone from being a bad set-piece team to a laughably bad set-piece team.
Probably the worst in the league.
It's just unfathomable to watch this team not do things that high school soccer teams understand.
Yeah. And that leads me back to the coaching and the game plan. What are they exactly teaching at training that prevents them from actually marking arguably the best goal scorer in MLS? I know there's a few in the table. To a wide open goal on the back post. It's unacceptable. It's unfathomable, and it's just really disappointing as fans who came into the season on paper really quality, or not really quality, but quality enough team that could compete, and that's clearly not replicating in the game. And it sucked to be in Soldier Field watching that happen because you know it should be better.
Yeah, the procession of fans out of the building began here even before halftime, which is never a good sign.
Yep.
But everyone's just standing around. You're looking for anybody to step up, and we've got Shiho's doing poor on marking. He has seemed a step off all season. I mean, the whole weird captaincy thing that never really got explained, and then being followed by him seeing maybe a little somewhere else a lot of times. Maybe there's a very good explainable reason for that, but he's not been the same. You see Acosta in this game kind of lose his head early there. It's so frustrating to watch, and I think what you're seeing there in that reaction from Kuipers is, what on earth have I signed up for? Like, this is a guy who could have had opportunities to go play in a top 5 league in Europe, and this is a guy who was less than 2 years removed from winning the Belgian League Golden Boot. He's 27. Like, this is a guy who's trying to get in the Belgian national team right now. And he made this decision to come to Chicago because he bought into whatever he was sold, whatever the vision was. And now he's standing around here in a team that can't pass on the ball and a defense that's so leaky that it doesn't matter even if he scores a goal or two, they're going to lose anyway. It's just the disconnect is just insane. So this goes in 3-0 at halftime.
Great.
The Fire make increasingly attacking changes throughout the second half. The one bright spot we'll say there is Yorios Koutsias came in and he tried real hard.
He's always been a workhorse.
It didn't really result in anything, but Koutsias at least seemed interested in the soccer game, which is less a compliment to him and more of an indictment, I think, of everybody else.
Yep, absolutely. Koutsias is a guy that I personally wanted to see more because when
where has he been?
I don't know. And it's always been Tom Barlow, and we know Tom Barlow's press doesn't really do anything for this club, but Koutsias comes in, he brings a little bit of energy, he brings a spunk. He's a bulldog. I know, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but he had that disallowed goal in the 87th minute, I think it was, and he's trying really hard. And I think we need to see more of him, especially when we go down 1-0. Be a little aggressive, get him on the field, see what he's able to do. Well,
as we'll talk about in a bit, I think he's going to get his opportunity this weekend because somebody has to go play in attacking positions for the Fire.
Yep.
Tom Barlow, I called this, he fouled off a pitch here, just fouls up a wide open look in the 67th minute.
Yep.
There was debate about trading assets for Tom Barlow. He can't be worse than Shabilko and Kamara. He's been a hard worker, a hard presser, off the bench guy. And then there were other people who were like, his goal scoring record's actually kind of awful. What are we doing here? The people who were on the negative side of that have been proven quite right. He has not gotten a lot of chances, but when he's been given them, such as being one-on-one with goalkeepers twice this season and scoring neither of them this whiff, it's just a comedy of errors. You mentioned Koutsias scores, but he's offside. It's
a mess.
It's a mess. Hugo Kuipers, again, here's another game where I think he might touch the ball twice inside the opposition box the entire game.
Sounds about right.
And that's just not enough. As I mentioned in the open to this segment, RSL are totally coasting at this point. They know the Fire are beaten emotionally, physically, that this game's way over. The one guy who didn't hear the bell is Diego Luna. He gets subbed on in the second half and clearly is trying to score one-man golazos the entire rest of the game. He eventually gets a pretty easy one in stoppage time because the Fire just kind of shepherd him straight down the field, slots it in past Brady. Shios collapses to the ground at this point and just, I don't know if more exhaustion or embarrassment.
Both, probably.
Yeah, Brady looks like he just wants to be anywhere else because this isn't his fault at all. Diego Luna, a guy who, like Brian Gutierrez, is making a case for the Olympic team, later this summer. He's probably gotten a bit more run with that group than Guti has. But again, he's like, no, I got to go out here and had my stats. And
he was in a slump, too.
Yeah, so the Fire are the perfect wake-up call for that. As you said earlier, Matt, this ties the worst loss in terms of margin in Fire home history, 4-0. Oh, and if all that wasn't bad enough, in addition to Gutierrez, Shaqiri exits this game with an injury. Fede Navarro, who replaced Gutierrez, exits this game with an injury. He's replaced by Gaston Jimenez, who then 20 minutes later has to leave with an injury. So I believe my tweet at the time was, when it rains, it monsoons.
Yep.
Like, that's just how this team functions.
It's accurate, and it's going to make this Saturday's game, the lineup, very, very interesting.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in the third segment about how do we even sort through this. The Fire are in 13th place, but they're only 2 points out of the playoffs because lol MLS.
MLS, baby. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
That said, though, here are the teams who are below them in the table. Nashville, who have been smacked in the face by Father Time. It turns out having an average age of like 30 in MLS is not a good way to win soccer games, even if Hani Mukhtar is still real good. And New England, who look totally useless, just completely inept. And then the teams in the West who are worse, Seattle, woof.
Wow.
Just falling off a cliff there.
Yeah, Seattle being bad is bad for the league and just weird overall. They've always been good.
FC Dallas, woof. Like,
yeah, wow.
they're worse than the Fire in terms of, like, went out and spent money this offseason and somehow got worse.
Moose, good players on that team.
Then the team who we expected to run with the spoon, just like their hockey team is currently doing, the San Jose Earthquakes, are rock bottom of MLS. But again, everybody kind of saw that coming. They were supposed to be terrible, and they are indeed quite terrible. So there were a lot of reactions to this performance between coaches, players, fans, people like us, media, which I really want to get into because, again, we don't often see these Apple broadcasts get particularly critical.
Yep.
And whoo boy, did people have things to say about this game.
That's how you know it was bad, is when the national media starts going crazy about the Fire. They never talk about us.
Yeah, and we'll get to Bradley Wright Phillips' quote, which I haven't seen him be. He hasn't seemed to be forced to issue a retraction yet, which tells you the state of it, because as we talked about in the show, Sasha Klestin said something negative about MLS Cup and was then written, a retraction was quickly written for him. Mm-hmm. He then later ends up playing in the MLS Cup as getting the last laugh, and so he did find his way around that. But the criticism that came in for the Fire during and after this one was notable, but we'll get to that after a word from a few more people who make this show possible, and the first one is Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. You're not battling a whole nation of people. It doesn't matter who does better, who does worse in terms of the people who are involved in picking more or less on a certain stat or a certain outcome. It's just you and the numbers, because all you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you get to watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks also has injury insurance. We've all been in that situation. You're hoping that a player performs particularly well or particularly poorly in a certain area, and then it doesn't matter because they get hurt before or after the game. That gets voided out, and you're just watching your money go down the drain. So if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection will not count against you. The rest of your entry stays live. Also, exciting news, Prize Picks is now offering Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits to your account as we approach, the heat of the summer and baseball season. The NFL draft is here. There's a lot more exciting things on the horizon. We at CHGO have really loved working with Prize Picks and getting us all back into daily fantasy sports after that trend kind of fell off over the last couple of years. Prize Picks, though, is bringing it back. So go to prizepicks.com/CHGO and use the code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/CHGO and use code CHGO. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Also, a word from our friends at Chevy, with whom you can drive home a winner this April after visiting our partner, Ray Chevrolet. They're sharing their best offers of the year, so make your way to Ray Chevrolet on Route 12 in Fox Lake to join in on the savings. As one of the top-selling Chevy dealers in the Midwest, you'll always be able to shop one of Chicagoland's largest Chevy inventories. Plus, you can find the perfect tailgate vehicle for soccer, football, anything else you can imagine tailgating. A really bad White Sox baseball, maybe some better Cubs baseball. So you can get that perfect tailgating vehicle at Ray Chevy, because for a limited time, they're offering 0% financing for 72 months on new Silverados, and they've got over 100 Silverados available. And to top it all off, they're pricing over 125 vehicles currently under $20,000. Seriously, can you get pricing more affordable than that? Also, you can get a free oil change at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake when you mention CHGO. That is a free oil change. Seems like those things are getting more expensive all the time, so take advantage. All you need to do is mention CHGO when scheduling your oil change. So start off this new year and the summer right and schedule it by April 30th. Visit Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake or raychevrolet.com. They've been serving the community since 1963. Chevrolet, find new roads. All right, Matt, let's get to the various reactions after this game. And I want to start with Frank Klopas, who I have criticized a bit. Last episode we mentioned that the seat warmer was on 1. I think it might be time to actually up the seat warmer a level, because, again, is it ultimately Klopas' fault? I think you could argue it is not, but it's one of the few things that's changeable. But the thing I want to talk about here is he was visibly upset during this post-game press conference. He looked like he was either on the verge of tears, that he had been crying. And this is a guy who is always the very positive attitude, going to put on a good face, going to be kind of that front-facing guy. So this was jarring. Like, I've never seen him like this. He's a club legend, and it really feels like maybe this whole experience of being the interim last year and ending up as the head coach, which it's debatable depending on some whispers and rumors if he even wanted this job, if he thought he was going to be a contender for this job. It's sad, honestly, to see it weighing on him like this.
Yeah, it really is. I didn't get a chance to see the press conference or see his reaction, but to hear that he was visibly upset is crazy. I mean, this is a guy who's a Ring of Fire guy. Mm-hmm. He's been with the club for what feels like since 1998, like forever. And he loves the club, and no one's ever doubted that. But I know all of us were so confused when he got hired at the beginning of this season. We were like, what is going on? And ultimately, we're seeing those sort of feelings that we felt in preseason, midway through their quarter way through the season right now. And that sucks because he's such an easy guy to root for. Mm-hmm. Like, if you are a Chicago Fire fan, you like Frank Klopas, what he's done for the club. He's been a head coach. He was our announcer back in 2018, 2019, something like that, back in the Bosty days. Like, this is a guy who will literally die for the club. And
he cares so much about this team. And I've heard a few people, and Peter in the comments is alluding to this as well, I've heard a few people express genuine concern that this is going to long-term tarnish the legacy of what he did on the field for this team and how much he desperately cares about him. On the goals, he said, quote, "I think the goals we gave up were all preventable, simple give and goes, especially that first one, not tracking runners." Again, I've said this before on this show, and I'll say it again. You can only criticize individuals involved in here so much. I think in this game, we can absolutely criticize the effort of the players, your professional soccer players. Yes, it's not a good situation. Yes, maybe the vibes aren't great, and you feel like the coaching isn't what you want it to be, and you feel like there's no direction, but you've got to at least show up. And from the word go almost in this game against RSL, the players did not show up. But it's not fair to the players that no actual coaching search was done and that Klopas does not seem to know what to do to make things better. It's not Klopas' fault that he still has this job when I don't think he probably expected to, and again, allegedly might not have wanted it. It's not George Heitz's fault that he seemed surprised that he was still here. I mean, the face of George Heitz we saw at the preseason press conference, and just the relief and how frank he was talking about the struggles, no pun intended there on Klopas, how honest he was talking about the ways it hadn't gone right. I don't think that man thought he was getting an extension. I'm pretty sure that man thought he was getting fired.
And so did the community.
And then he didn't. So no, I think Heitz was just as confused as everybody else that he got that new contract. So it's just, could they replace Klopas? Sure. Could you make Paulo Nagamura an interim, the current top assistant? Sure, you could do that. Could you go, I don't know, throw a bag of money at Jesse Marsh, who's allegedly being courted by Canada right now for their head coaching job? Yeah, could you do that? Sure, but everything feels like a Band-Aid right now. It's just because it just feels like you change the players. They've changed all the things that don't have any impact, seemingly, and there's no clear current path out of this. But on that note, what the path out of this could be was actually a question that was posed on the broadcast. The broadcast team for this game was Tyler Terrens, who's a friend of the show, former Fire play-by-play guy who knows a lot about this club and cares. Like a lot of people who've been in and around this team, who does care about this team and wants to see it succeed. The Apple commentary tends to lean a little sanitary, just because again it's an in-house product. Yeah. You know, you are selling the league. And that's no indictment on anybody individually. That is the job of this Apple deal, is to sell MLS to the people paying money to subscribe to the service. But they did not hold back, especially once it got to 3-0. So once the Fire totally began to fall apart, there's lots of conversation about the Fire writ large. Right before halftime, Kendra D. St. Aubin asks Tyler the question, "You've spent a lot of time here. What do you think the biggest issue is?" And I would describe what followed as an 8 months pregnant pause, because it was a discernible 5 to 10 seconds of nothing as Terrence thought it over what he wanted to say here. And I believe the way he got out of there at the moment was, he said something to the effect of, how much time do you have? We only have 3 minutes of stoppage time here at the end of the first half.
And that's he's like a big pro club guy. Like, he loves talking good about the Chicago Fire. So it's weird to hear him, being critical.
Well, he said, that's a tough question. And he also then made a joke early in the second half to D. St. Aubin that, I'm going to ask you 3 or 4 tough questions in this half after the place you put me in. Yeah. At the end of the first half, they had to chuckle about it again. It's this entire unspoken thing, because then later in the game, in the second half, D. St. Aubin she just says the thing, which is she doesn't feel like the team can move forward as long as it's built around the need for Shaqiri to be the main man, which, again, that's obvious, and that's not just about Shaqiri. It's that you kind of have to play him, and that limits other people, and that just makes the team what it is. And then at the end of that point, she says, quote, "But I don't know whose decision that is in terms of changing it." To which Terrence goes, "Yes, you do." And then he moves on very quickly and segues into something that is going on the field. So the quiet part out loud there is it's on Heights. Like, it was his decision. That's who has gotten them into this decision with his choices and, what this team is. And so it's just this wide open thing. And then I want to then, as we segue into fans' reaction to this and how empty the stadium was, the attendance wasn't great for this game already. It was right about 14K. I don't expect Saturday night against Atlanta to exactly be wonderful either. Apple does the wrap-up show where they talk about every game that day. They kind of quickly, recap the storylines. Let's go through what happened, show some highlights. And when they get to the Fire part, Bradley Wright Phillips, MLS legend, former New York Red Bulls, one of the top goal scorers in league history, he said that if he was a Chicago Fire season ticket holder, he would turn in his tickets for the remainder of the season. As somebody who I know is a passionate fan, Matt, what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, it hit home for Avi. I am a season ticket holder for the Fire, and it got my mind thinking. But my first thing was, oh my God, Bradley Wright Phillips is calling us out. That's great. This is an Apple TV guy. They're sanitary. They're supposed to be sanitary. Nope. He just went crazy, and I'm interested to see if there will be a reaction. There hasn't been one yet. But it definitely did hit home, and I know I'm personally not going to do that just because Bradley Wright Phillips told me to. I'm sure there are some Fire fans who are just as diehard as me that are thinking maybe it's time for me to pack it in. I know some of my friends feel that way. And at this point, I don't believe them. Going back to your original question that was asked right before halftime to Tyler of what's the main issue, and I feel like we never do anything with 100% effort. Everything's always 50%.
That's a good description.
And for a lot of Fire fans, they're kind of hitting the end of that line, and they need to see more than 50% or 75% effort. And it was just crazy to hear that from a guy, BWP, MLS legend. But it did hit home. I've been feeling it. I've been thinking about it. And I know hundreds of other people in this community who are season ticket holders are feeling it too.
Yeah, and again, we saw how empty things were at the end of this match. It's sad to see, and because what are the Fire selling? That's the thing. Like if you want
the
people,
red jerseys.
Well, yes, those have been selling well. No, those are getting some income. So no, that is good. And allegedly, the food is maybe going to be getting better at Soldier Field because Levi,
something
they're the restaurant company who services the Cubs, whose food went from real bad to pretty darn good over the last 5 years, and so positive. Also, I say this as somebody with food allergies who can't eat like a damn thing at Soldier Field.
And as a Sox fan, Wrigley Field. Oh, you mentioned is that Cubs? Never mind.
Yeah, no, but the Sox food's always been good, but that's a separate thing. I would take the White Sox food purveyor at Soldier Field.
Oh yeah.
Also, but the baseball stadiums are both much better, I would argue, than all the other venues.
100%. United Center's not bad, but Soldier Field's probably bottom of the tier.
Yeah, so hopefully that'll get better. But yeah, what are you selling? Because frankly, you heard it in the broadcaster's voice. You hear it in somebody like BWP's voice. BWP does not have a horse in this race. It does not matter to him at all if the Fire suck. The Fire have been here for a while. Everybody, from the diehard fans down to the casual observers, is just tired of this shit. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's a better way to put it. It's just everybody is tired. Yep. We're tired about having podcasts or people writing things where we have to be like, oh man, is this the new low? It's bad again? Like, there's a saying in sports media that you either want to cover a great team or a terrible team. You don't want to cover mediocrity. I don't know about you. I would take some mediocrity right about now.
So please, give me an average team. Average gets you into the playoffs in MLS.
Below average gets you into the playoffs in MLS.
Exactly.
Again, the Fire are 2 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah.
If they somehow beat Atlanta on Saturday, they'll be in like 7th place.
That's messed up.
That's
crazy.
18 teams making the playoffs in a 29-team league is dumb, but we don't need to get more into that. The last thing I want to hit here is the players. Like, is the negative inertia of this team so strong that even new guys who show up get sucked in by that rip current? Because it's crazy to watch a guy like Kellen Acosta, as we mentioned, seemingly go from a couple weeks ago, outspoken, strong, going to be the new leader and the new face of this, to he seems to be right in the thick of it with everybody else looking like they're not particularly interested.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like a little bit of a hive mind, and it's been like that for the past 10 years. Basti comes in, the first couple of years, they're very average. He was disappointing, and it's been like that for the last 10 years where we haven't got that guy who can really lift us out of the gutter, which I don't think is primarily the player's fault. But it's still weird to see guys like Hugo and Kellen coming in and with so much belief and so much optimism, for that matter, of which I'm an optimist too. Love that. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, you heard Kellen's words after the game. They posted it on Twitter. He was hurt, man. Hugo was hurt. You talked about it after the third goal. Everyone's just hurt, and it's a hive mind, and we got to get out of that rut. Just don't know how.
Yeah, I think that's the thing you're scared of is Kuiper's, he's starving for service. Yeah. And you see that reaction on the Arango unmarked goal as a striker being like, I would be surprised if I was left that unmarked. What are we doing here? Yeah. Like, you really hope he doesn't, start coasting and packing in, because
100%.
Him getting 2 or 3 looks maybe a game, which isn't enough, by the way, but that's the Fire's best chance really to get goals, because he is such a poacher that if you give him a chance or two, he might score. Like some at the post against Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and that would have changed that game. Like, so he's the one guy. He can't check out, and it's you really hope, even if they don't win on Saturday, that we got to see some sort of emotional response. On that note, I think we've got a graphic if we want to take a look before we got out of here at the projected starting lineup against Atlanta, because whole bunch of injuries. The good news here is that the defense is relatively intact. We think Andrew Gutman will play this Saturday. He is scheduled to be the player speaker during the weekly media availability tomorrow, which would say to me that he has been given the green light. But I've got Yoyos Koutsias getting a start, because who else are you going to play there? Fabian Herbers is the 10. Chris Mueller's out there again. Mauricio Pineda, who we haven't heard from in weeks, because Fetty and Gaston are both out. Like, would you change anything here, Matt, or is this about what we think we're going to get?
No, I mean, at the end of the day, I think this is spot on, which isn't a good thing for the record, because
I appreciate that, though, but yeah.
That's not the greatest starting 11. What I'm actually more interested in seeing is what the bench looks like. Are they going to think about calling up some of these talented CF2 guys to compete with some of these first teamers. But I do think this is right. I think it's going to be very interesting. I actually really like Kutsias sliding into the starting 11. I think
again, because he gave that effort that last game. It's like, is he going to go out there and score? I don't know, but he's going to run like hell, and he's gonna do something.
Exactly. I think it's going to be interesting. You got Mauricio Pineda, who will die for the badge. Kutsias, who will run all over the pitch. Chris Muller, although he hasn't been the same since injury, he still works hard and he tries. It's interesting. I think they're going to come out flashing in the first 20 minutes. One, because this personnel looks like they'd be a really in-your-face type of starting 11. But it's an interesting one. And these injuries, we're at that point where it's do or die with the injuries, and that could really make or break our season.
You also wonder if Klopas shifts the shape just a little bit, and you see Herbers staying deeper and more of a midfield 3, and Gutman really pushing high. This is also, we could see a back 3 in this game. We could see Salquist come back in and join Shihos and Turan. We could see Pineda play in the middle of a back 3. He's looked comfortable there. And then you see Herbers partnering Acosta as a pivot behind a front 3. I think there's a lot of options here. I think it's going to obviously look different. I'm really hoping Andrew Gutman's back out there, because that would be a...
he's my favorite player. Go Hoosiers.
Yeah, and please bring back all the comments that believe me, Tim Hotsey, Andrew Gutman, and Chase Gasper are the same people. We have not been able to make those jokes because those guys haven't played. Before we get out of here, I just want to run through the upcoming schedule because, oh boy, Saturday versus Atlanta, I have written gulp because that's
fair enough.
That went poorly a couple weeks ago on Easter Sunday, I believe.
Sounds about right.
So that went poorly. Hopefully it goes less poorly. Then after that, I can't believe I'm saying this, the Fire have a must-win game because it's home against the worst team in the Eastern Conference, the New England Revolution, who you'll remember the Fire drew away, but that game was a total mess. It was a rainstorm. It was weird. I don't really put much stock in that at all. You got to win that game. Then it's an away day I know you and a lot of people are excited for at St. Louis after that. The Fire finally making the trip down there. They still haven't played here. I don't know how that's possible. MLS schedulers, figure it out. No, they've played at in Bridgeview. They have not played at Soldier Field yet.
No, they did play at home last year. We played them back-to-back, 2 St. Louis games in a row.
One of them, though, was Open Cup.
And the other one was an MLS game.
Yeah, so let's get that rivalry going. Then they're home versus Charlotte. And then home against Columbus, also gulp. So, I mean, it feels like, again, because it's MLS, you're never really out of it until you're out of it.
Yep.
But that New England, St. Louis, Charlotte run, they got to show.
Got to win.
You got to win versus New. You got to win versus New England, and then you move on from there. Again, this Saturday I'm looking for Gutman, and I'm looking for a response because it's we've seen a lot of bad soccer. I haven't seen much what I would call embarrassing soccer. And Saturday, Matt Shabelman was embarrassing. You did not embarrass yourself at all, though, on the show today. Really enjoyed having you. Looking forward to having you back again sometime.
Appreciate it.
Anything you want to plug from your universe over at MIR 97 while you've got the chance?
No, I'd love the opportunity. If you aren't following already, go ahead and follow at Men in Red 97, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We don't have a TikTok, not quite there yet, but go ahead and drop us a follow. We are big Fire fans, our whole team, podcasts, articles, all that type of stuff, and love hanging out with the CHGO Fire gang too, of course. So thank you.
And then, of course, your friend and mine, Alex Calabrese, will be returning from war, and by war I mean his sophomore year of college here in about a month. So you'll be seeing more of him around. We'll get him on here. He'll be more visible on your guys' stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, but and to Matt's point, he's going to be there. Sun, rain, soccer tornado, hurricane,
I'll be there.
Natural disaster. No matter how bad it gets, Matt's going to be committed. So thank you, Matt, for being here. Thank you to Joey behind the scenes, running the ones and twos for us today. That is going to do it for this episode of CHGO Fire. If you're watching on YouTube, please stick around at 3:30. We've got CHGO Red Stars, a new episode of that. Leslie Ryder of Gal Pal Sports will join me for talk about a soccer team that here in Chicago actually wins games. On that note, for Matt, I'm Alex, and I'll see you next time.